Video finds you all doing well. Welcome to the Block 2 wrap-up. We had an interesting last 2 weeks. I guess the last week as we engaged. Really enjoyed the conversations that took place. A lot of thoughtful discussion, clinical relevancy, and intertwined with evidence. And so I really appreciate that. I appreciate how people are bringing more research to the table. Some people still are relying a little too much on their clinical experience and not doing enough self-reflecting. But I think as we continue to explore this, more and more of us are using the literature to guide us, and I really appreciate that. So, FYI, for blocks 3 and 4, we're going to be switching to new groups for the remainder of the course. So, if you enjoyed the groups that you were with, we're going to switch up, and hopefully you can enjoy this new group. And if you were hoping for some different voices, you're going to get an opportunity for that. So I will attach that to an email next week so that you know where to post for block 3. And then I'll also I will also be adding. I'll be giving the kind of the mid course feedback for everyone, just so that you all know kind of where you stand and how, if you need to be improving, what you can do to improve, and if you're doing a great job, that just some words of encouragement to keep it up. Continue to bring outside resources and articles to add to the discussion, right? I think that it's really important that if and not just tacking the article on, but also using the article to build your case. And a lot of people are starting to do more of that, and I appreciate that. And that's really what I want people to be able to utilize, is the research to build your argument. We can talk to our coworkers that way more easily. We can talk to other physicians that way more easily. We can speak to our patients that way. That strengthens the information that we give. It makes it more reputable. It makes it more established. It lets people know that we really do understand what we're talking about, and this isn't just something that we've just conjured up over our clinical experience. Some of you are just building yours, and others have a lot of it. And our clinical experience can be really good, and there's a lot of value, but it can be clouded. And if we don't compare it to what the literature, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. So continue to do that. I appreciate those who are really making an effort to do that. So as far as the articles went this week and the topics of discussion for block 2, the proximal hamstring stuff, for the most part, I thought everybody did a really good job giving me. So we have the GOOM article, but I guess what I'll speak to is first, I've commented in Flipgrid about the different groups and the different different exercises associated with each of the groups. And I thought you guys really seemed to have a good understanding of the different phases, understanding that. With proximal hamstring strains, there's things, in the GOOM article, there's things that we tease out, right? We tease out neurodynamics, we tease out lumbar spine, we tease out, even I would argue, I should have probably tacked on some kind of gluteal involvement as well. There's a couple of nice articles on chronic hamstring strains as it relates to poor neurodynamics that were never appropriately screened. And then, are you appropriately training the muscle? And so this is where I will say, like I tried to say in each of the Flipgrid videos, that when you train something that is strained or has a form of tendinopathy, again, working into pain is what you need to do. Again, in the confines of a certain amount of pain, too much versus too little versus the just right. Asking people to work harder each time. I oftentimes ask that person to train at a certain level when they're in the clinic, and then I give them a goal to hit, right? Like, so maybe I'll say, you go home and do 2 sets of 15. Don't come back until you can do 2 sets of 25. That might take you a week. That might take you 2 weeks. But for them to have this kind of idea of progression in mind, and I'll tell you, the next time you come back, my job is to make this harder. And that's how you appropriately progressively load a muscle. And that's what we've seen, that the research shows that whether it's, I would argue, whether it's tendon related change or if it's even within the muscle belly related change, that load heals. And the more we load that tissue, the better it's going to be adaptive and responsive to other workaday loads that we apply to it. The Handel article on HippoWay, Hopefully you all are using those manual techniques as a way to reduce pain and improve mobility, but then you're also increasing some of the exercise and, again, load progression, right? The same rules apply. Using your own clinical reasoning to help you guide what interventions you use. I will say that in the Hando article, I feel like I probably put less emphasis on mobility and more emphasis on strength. And there was a lot of a lot of exercises. And I would have maybe pared those down a little bit, but I understand why they did it, and certainly is certainly reasonable within what would you typically find in a clinical setting. So FAI, the great news is that we can be a really good resource for FAI. And obviously, everybody was in agreement that surgery is not the first option. And I'm sure that there are places that that's the case. Unfortunately, people come in, and in most cases, these are athletes who come in. It's highly irritable. They have an MRI. The surgeon shows them what's going on, and they're like, "Well, why would I do anything but just go get this taken care of, right?" Right. And so we know that there are other options available. We know that the prognosis for a lot of people with FAI are really good. And so that's even the group that may or may not need surgery, right? The soccer player, the hockey player, maybe a martial arts person. And then there are these people who are like in their mid-20s and mid-30s who might play softball on a weekend, or might, who knows, went hiking, and they come back, and for whatever reason their hip is irritable, and they get an image and they say, "Oh, well, here's your cam impingement. We probably should have this surgically operated on." And you're like, time out. We do not need to be headed down this road right away, right? Like, those are the classic people that drive me crazy when they have surgery. And so we know that there are good options available for those people that don't need to involve surgery, which is really great. So that I believe that we can make a difference in educating people. We can make a difference in demonstrating our knowledge of the information. And again, evidence-based medicine means that what we know today is not what may be true tomorrow, and so that you need to continue to keep that information fresh. Being able to push that literature to you so that you know what is current is really important. But yeah, I think these were some really good overarching topics that we talked about. We also, I didn't put in, we could go a little bit into the Van Dusen article and the buttock pain. Bottom line is that we need to stop stretching the piriformis and start strengthening glute med, and maybe to a certain extent glute max. Okay, so next we're going to do evidence-based management of selected knee disorders. Oh, this is one of my favorites. There's a lot of good information out there in regards to a couple of different things that we'll be discussing, and I'll be anxious to hear what everybody has to say. Much like the FAI, there's some very poignant topics about the knee that we could easily be talking about, right? We can start talking about knee OA and ACLs and meniscal repairs, and should we even be doing meniscal repairs? Is the meniscal arthroscopy or the cleanup of the knee akin to a shoulder arthroscopy, right? Knee arthroscopy and shoulder arthroscopy, are they going the way of the dodo? That's I would argue that they probably are, and that in 10 years you won't be seeing those based on what the current evidence says. And so we'll get into some good discussions perhaps about some of that as well. So if you have any questions, obviously reach out to me at any time. Always willing. You can get me the fastest and the easiest by either texting me or calling me or emailing me directly. I know some people have used the discussion board as a way to reach out to me, and most of the time I'll catch it, but I may not catch it as quickly. It may be a day or two because sometimes I don't see some of the stuff that I either miss it or I'm looking at something else. This is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Otherwise, keep up the good work. I look forward to Block 3 and Block 4 as we move through the halfway point, and look for my comments. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. Take good care. Enjoy your weekend.